Paramore is an alternative rock band that first broke out onto the scene in 2005 with their debut album, All We Know Is Falling. Since then, the band has been met with much success. With 2 Grammy wins and 4 nominations, Paramore show no sign of slowing down. Everyone has heard at least one Paramore song in their life, whether it be Decode from the Twilight soundtrack, their smash hit Ain't It Fun, or their dance anthem Hard Times. Out of all the concerts I've attended, there's nothing like a Paramore show. As soon as the concert ended, I immediately began looking for a way to see them again. Taylor York, Zach Farrow, and Paramore are unique. Watching them in their element is a joy. The rush I got watching them perform was something I've never experienced before. Everyone, even up in the nosebleeds, dance along to each song. More importantly, I love Paramore because of the community they've strived to build over the years. Everyone is welcomed in their crowds, and they never discriminate. They aren't afraid to speak up against global issues. That's what This Is Why was mainly about. The alternative music scene is misogynistic, even though the scene is advertised as inclusive. It is oftentimes contradictory, sexist, and discriminatory. Alternative rock music gained popularity in the 1990s. Alt-rock was a direct continuation of college rock and new wave. Bands like Nirvana, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Foo Fighters, and the Smashing Pumpkins were some of the most popular alt bands of the time. In the beginning of their career, Paramore was one of the few female-fronted bands during that time. Bands like Blondie, Fleetwood Mac, No Doubt, and the Go-Go's helped pave the way for Paramore and made female-fronted bands more common. Stevie Nicks and Christy McVie shut down a sexist interviewer by putting it quite plainly.
I think in that way, I guess we were the innovators of that kind of thing, because it was more or less, to my knowledge, prior to us, sort of girls would be in rock bands but would be backup singers and
pretty faces.
Well, they could be. I think it comes down to the fact that Fleetwood Mac would not go on without Chris and me, right, if we were sick or something. Whereas in most bands with a girl in it could go ahead and would go on and play. But they'd have trouble without us.
Debbie Harry of Blondie recounts a time where she faced sexism. To promote their upcoming debut album, Blondie's record label decided to plaster posters of Debbie in a see-through blouse throughout Times Square. Harry says, "At the time, I was shocked, and I was told something different. I think that's really what the problem was, that I was reassured that the photo would be cropped and that it wouldn't be used below a certain point. The frustration for me was that I hadn't been treated fairly. They hadn't said, oh, well, we're going to see the full shot. They said, we're going to crop it, and then they didn't. So that was the rub more than the fact that you could see my breasts. Without their hard work navigating the scene, I don't think Paramore would be here today." Marketing is a massive component in the music industry, especially with indie and alternative bands. In the early 2000s, The O.C., a popular teen drama, was credited for putting many indie alternative bands on the map. Indie record labels realized that the target demographic for their bands aligned with the viewers of The O.C. MySpace is another platform that has jump-started many careers. Bands like Paramore, My Chemical Romance, and Pierce the Veil got their start on the platform. Hayley Williams and her mom, Christy Williams, moved from Mississippi to Franklin, Tennessee in 2002 when Hayley was 13 years old. While at school, she met brothers Josh and Zach Farrow. A year later, in 2003, Atlantic Records discovered Hayley. They envisioned her as a pop solo act who would be their equivalent to Avril Lavigne, but she didn't want that. She had dreams of being in a rock band. Thus, Paramore was born. Josh, Hayley, and Zach joined forces with Jeremy Davis and started recording demos together as Paramore. Jeremy abruptly left the band as they were gearing up to record their debut album. His family and girlfriend were the deciding factors in his decision to leave the group. Paramore was left completely blindsided by his decision. This is evident in their debut album, All We Know Is Falling. The ominous artwork of the album shows a shadowy figure that represents Jeremy. Songs like Pressure, Emergency, All We Know, and Brighter detail their thoughts and feelings regarding Jeremy leaving the band. After the success of All We Know Is Falling, Paramore were invited to perform at Warped Tour 2005. Warped Tour was a traveling rock band that traveled the US and Canada each summer from 1995 to 2019. However, there was a catch. They would be performing on the Shira Girls stage. This felt like a backhanded compliment to 16-year-old Hayley. Hayley says, "As a 16-year-old who had dreams of playing with the big boys, it felt like we were being slighted." Hayley purposely wrote without pronouns because many men would think, they're a guy. How do they relate to what she's saying? During Warped Tour 2006, a then 17-year-old Hayley decided to wear a tank top while performing. Men took this as an opportunity to sexualize her and throw condoms at her on stage.
Listen up! All you gotta do is march yourself over to our merch table.
this didn't happen to bands fronted by men. In 2007, Paramore released their second studio album, Riot. One song brought them heat in 2017 for anti-feminist lyrics. In the song Misery Business, Haley sings,
Second chances, they don't ever matter, people never change. Once a whore, you're nothing more, I'm sorry, that'll never change.
Haley has since apologized for the lyrics, and Paramore even retired the song for 4 years. The lyric itself represents the internalized misogyny many girls felt in the early 2000s. What she didn't know at the time was that she was feeding into a lie many have bought into before. The need to not be like other girls, or the cool girl, around guys was something many women faced during this time. It is important to note that Brendan Urie, lead singer of Panic at the Disco, didn't receive the same amount of backlash as Paramore did for his lyrics in I Write Sins Not Tragedies. I wonder why. Over the years, Paramore has gone through many lineup changes. Notably, in 2010, Josh and Zach departed from the group. In their departure, Josh dropped a bomb, a lengthy expose detailing why he and Zach decided to part from the band. According to Josh, the band started to become all about Haley. He even points out that Haley is the only one officially signed to Atlantic Records. Josh and Zach's final straw was their growing differences in religious beliefs. On their third studio album, Brand New Eyes, songs like Careful and Playing God were riddled with lyrics that Josh disagreed with. Instead of fighting Haley over them, he stayed quiet. The media scrutinized Haley for years after. Today, we can interpret this as sexism. Haley says, I find it interesting that bands we've loved, who have been through lineup changes, even bands who haven't, have been honest about how much they hate each other, and you never question their loyalty. You never think, oh, Tom York must be the Hitler of Radiohead. He can be an asshole. I wonder if it's simply because I'm a woman. I could have had it and the story wouldn't have gotten any traction. As mentioned at the start, the rock scene is heavily dominated by men. A research study conducted by Dr. Stacey L. Smith, Dr. Catherine Piper, Carla Hernandez, and Sam Wheeler showed an 80% male and 11% female ratio in alternative music. Unfortunately, Paramore was no stranger to misogyny. During their set at Warped Tour 2006, someone in the crowd threw a condom at Haley and it stuck to her chest. Although she handled it well, she often cites this as the most embarrassing moment of her career. This also begs the question, would this have happened to a male performer? Even in the 2000s, the emo punk scene was riddled with internalized misogyny and blatant sexism. In an interview with People magazine, Williams recounts a time when she often felt pressure to act more masculine and not to be high maintenance. She also describes a time when a former friend of another band made a joke about her private parts. The mistreatment of women in the alt scene doesn't just present itself in the US, but around the world. Caroline Townsend is the author of For Girls Who Wanna Rock, We Exclude You: Experiences of Discrimination in Indonesian Alternative Music Scene. This journal examined gender-based discrimination in the Indonesian alternative music scene. Townsend interviewed 6 people who were a part of the scene and discussed sexism, discrimination, solidarity, and contradiction that accompanied the scene. Tika, Charlie, Hera, Fierda, Weedy, and Siti were the interviewees. Sexism is a vital issue in the alternative music scene. The women interviewed have all had their fair share of alienation and pushback regarding their involvement in the scene, primarily because of the beliefs within Islamism. However, Charlie's perspective is fascinating as a man in the scene. He recalls his bandmates' sexist and homophobic behavior towards women and himself. At age 24, Tika was on the heels of a record deal with a major label. She was then asked to gain 22 to 33 pounds to be promoted as a hot singer or a fat singer. In the interview, Charlie discusses a time when he tried to convince his bandmates to not include a video of a woman being objectified. However, his bandmates refused by saying, that's the street, it's raw. Women are expected to put up with sexism within the scene, even as a listener in the crowd. All 6 participants agree that solidarity between women is of utmost importance. The double standards between women and men in the scene also span to live performances. For the research portion of my essay, I chose to conduct a phenomenological study. Phenomenology is a form of qualitative research that focuses on analyzing an individual's lived experiences within the world. My objective was to record and analyze my interviewees' beliefs, feelings, and perceptions concerning the thing being studied. That thing being people's concert experiences and how it impacts them. More specifically, women's importance in the music scene and how they may be perceived more harshly than their male counterparts. My questions include, do you believe women are held to a higher standard than men when it comes to performing live? How does your experience watching a male performer differ from a female performer? Which concert was more fun, and how did this concert impact you? My interviewees agreed that women are held to a higher standard when performing. Taylor Swift and Beyoncé had the biggest tours of 2023. They filled stadiums and engaged a crowd for 2 hours. Each show wasn't just a concert, it was an experience. When thinking of Drake's concert, it doesn't come close in terms of scale and production. When watching a male performer, the concert held a more aggressive energy. For example, mosh pits, jumping, and pushing. Travis Scott found himself in hot water after the Astroworld incident. The Astroworld tragedy left 10 people dead, the youngest being 9 years old. Their deaths were caused by the moshing culture during Travis's concerts, as well as the constant pushing, shoving, and trampling by others in the crowd. As mentioned before, concerts are an experience. Getting to see your favorite performer live is an incredible opportunity that is like no other. They leave a lasting impact that you carry for the rest of your life. Concerts give you fun memories that you can share with your friends. It can also change the way you feel about different kinds of music. If you have a bias to a certain kind of music, it can change your view on different performers. Not many bands have had the opportunity to experience Paramore's longevity in their career. Their ability to grow with their audience and their confidence to try new sounds is what sets them apart from other bands. This Is Why was their comeback album after 6 years, which left fans wondering, do they still have it? This question was quickly answered as This Is Why debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200. They went on to sell out their arena tour, including 2 nights at Madison Square Garden. This era also brought them 2 Grammy wins. In an interview with Zane Lowe, Paramore sits down to take a look into the meaning behind each song, their inspirations, how they collaborate, and where they are as a band post After Laughter. While watching the interview, it's clear that this is the best the band has ever been, from the way they bounce off of each other to how they constantly praise each other throughout. As mentioned in the interview, this is their most collaborative record and it shows. This Is Why is their tightest and most cohesive album to date. In an interview with Uproxx magazine, Williams says, "There's something about the combination of the 3 of us that I think just works, and we balance each other out and drive each other crazy in the right way. It's the best that has ever worked because there's a joy to it. There's a playfulness to it. And then that seriousness of always wanting to challenge each other and ourselves to get better every time." Zach replies, "The band just feels like a different band than when we started it, in a really good way. I think at some point it's good to detach from something for a little bit so then you realize why you love it so much." One overarching issue that Paramore has faced is their 360 deal with Atlantic Records. 360 deals, also known as multiple rights, rose to prominence in the early 2000s. In a 360 deal, the record label gets a share of revenue from album, concert, and merch sales. This type of deal is geared towards new and emerging talent to allow the artist to perfect their craft. It also allows the artist to build a strong fan base. As stated in the new deal, Band is Brand, the label is practicing patience with the artist using this method. On the surface, this kind of deal sounds worth it. At the time, even Paramore saw this deal as an amazing opportunity. However, this deal is highly predatory under the surface, and these big record labels are taking advantage of young people. However, as of 2024, Paramore's 20-year deal is officially over. They are now free agents and are independent artists. For now, fans don't know what the future holds for Paramore exactly, but all signs point to Paramore sticking around for the long haul. The alternative music scene is a broken community with many problems. Women today still face sexism, misogyny, and discrimination in a scene that is advertised as inclusive. Despite the hardships, this doesn't stop women from filling these spaces and striving to make a difference for future generations. Paramore is one of many female-fronted bands that have had to navigate this broken space, but no matter their ups and downs, Paramore has powered through. Now, many young women today look up to them and see that it is possible to make it in this industry.